Wisp Sports Radio, the voice of women in sport.
Hello, and thank you for downloading The Horse Show here on Wisp Sports. This is Season 4, Episode 11, and I'm Chris Stafford. My guest this week is Paralympic dressage rider Sydney Collier, who is based in upstate New York, from where she's aiming to compete in her second Olympic Games next year, and hopes to have a new partner to take her on this journey. And since 2016, after she suffered her fifth stroke, she's been classified as a Grade 1 rider, which is the most severely impaired. Sydney has long since battled against all the odds since she started riding some 14 years ago. But nothing has deterred her from the sport she loves and the partnership she strives for with her horse. She was a member of the 2014 FEI World Equestrian Games squad in Normandy, riding Victoria Duggan's warm-blood gelding Willie Wesley. 2 years later, she returned to the squad to make her Olympic debut in Rio. And since then, she's teamed up with a new sponsor in show jumper Georgina Bloomberg. And their quest now is to find a horse for Sydney for the Tokyo Games. Riding one-handed is a challenge for any competitor, and we'll hear how Sydney prepares for competition, not least of all at international level, what keeps her strong, and despite her physical challenges, what continues to motivate her now. Hi, Sydney. Welcome to the program. It's the first time you've been on this show with me, so glad to have you. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me on.
So how have you been? What have you been doing recently?
I've been training and working super hard, trying to make it onto the team for, Rio. After 2014, I set my sights on the Paralympics, and I was able to make it onto the team for the 2016 Paralympics with actually my trainer's horse, Western Rose, and this was actually her second Paralympic Games. She represented the USA with another para-dressage rider in 2012. So it was an honor going down the center line with Rosie in 2016. And it was so incredible because just getting to have such a talented mare underneath me at my first, Paralympics on that world stage was jaw-dropping for me and a totally new experience. And, I caught that bug and really saw in my heart, wow, I want to bring this gold medal home for the United States. So post the games, I've really been focusing on making it onto the team for the 2020 Paralympics. And I really want to, go to Tokyo and get as many of the gold medals as possible, bring home the gold to the United States.
So you're as ambitious as ever. So tell us what you're riding now. What are you training with, and who are you riding, and what would be your plans then leading up to Tokyo if you have the right horse?
So right now, actually, post the Paralympics, I had my fifth stroke, and I really, after that, got, not discouraged, but it affected my left leg more than any of my other strokes. And basically, I woke up one day and I couldn't move my left leg at all. It was like my brain had disconnected from that leg entirely. And so I thought to myself, this is pretty strange. And during that entire time, I basically lost all of the feelings in my left side, which made relearning how to use any of the muscles on my left side even harder, because as you can imagine, if you can't feel them, how are you going to use them, you know? So I thankfully have been able to work with them enough to get back on the horses, and I was able to get reclassified to a grade 1. And obviously, because a grade 1, the tests are all walk. And as an all walk test, you would think, wow, that's going to be super easy, but not so much, because finding a horse that wants to walk for 5 minutes nonstop and do it super pretty in an FEI frame and nice and forward is kind of like finding a unicorn. It's like finding your dream horse. You know, you gotta like really hamper down. And obviously after that stroke, sadly the horse that I had, it was my grade 2, or now it's called grade 2. It used to be 1B. But he was a walk trot horse, so he had a fancy enough trot that it made up for a walk that wasn't good enough to be an all walk test and win, you know? So basically I set my sights on finding that unicorn, if you will, and finding a horse that could take me to that podium. And I've been, I was very lucky to find a young horse here in New York that we had very high hopes for, and we basically set our sights and competed him all that summer in 2017 and 2018, as well as the winter competitions. And he it just wasn't the right job for him, unfortunately. And all along, since actually last summer, I've been really, really lucky to have my sponsor, Georgina Bloomberg, join my team. And I'm so blessed, so incredibly blessed to have her believing in me and my abilities to make it onto the team for Tokyo in 2020. And I can't even fathom or put into words how incredibly thankful I am to have her, support me as I train and as I put in all of this hard work on a daily basis in order to represent the USA.
Well, you mentioned Georgina there. I wanted to talk about that sponsorship, and I also want to talk about your disability a little bit more, Sydney, in just a moment. But when you mention Georgina now, for those who are not familiar, Georgina is, of course, an international show jumper. So it's an interesting mix, cross disciplines. How did that relationship come about?
Actually, it was so cool. I got to meet her at a fundraiser before Rio in Wellington, and we kind of exchanged numbers, and she actually came and watched me ride in the CPDI that I was competing in that same weekend as the fundraiser, which obviously I had stars in my eyes because I'm like, oh my goodness, Georgina Bloomberg is coming and watching me ride. Wow, that is so amazing. Never in a million years did I think that would be happening. And then we stayed in touch in the year following, and basically always were cheering each other on, and as she was doing her Grand Prix show jumping, and she was supporting me, as she was looking at my Instagram, and we were texting back and forth, and it was just this really cool melding of two sports that people might not necessarily guess would support each other. So that's something that I think is really unique and just so mind-blowing, and what makes it even more special of a sponsorship to me, honestly, is being able to cheer her on and to have her support behind me as a fellow horse person.
Right, exactly. And, you speak the common language of horses, of course. So I was wondering if you go to shows or if you're Wellington, it's easy for you to go, I suppose, and support her as well. But what was the interest that she had, Sydney, in supporting you as a para dressage rider?
She really believes in the sport and believes in me and my goals, and obviously I can't speak for her all the way, but from what she's said and told me, it's just really her love of the horses, and she really loves my relationship with the horses and wants to be there cheering me on. And it's just, obviously it's hard for me to even find words, because just, wow, it's a dream come true, really.
Now, she's helping you then find a horse, is she, Sydney, for the 2020 Tokyo Paralympics?
Yep, she will be my horse sponsor for the 2020 Paralympics, and we're going to, do our best to make it there. We're going to make it there and get the gold.
Fantastic. Well, you mentioned earlier about the strokes. You had your fifth stroke after the 2016 Rio Paralympics. Now, just remind everybody who's not familiar with your story, Sydney, what your original disability is and what causes this, because it's unique, isn't it? It's a very rare disease.
Yes, it's incredibly rare. I like to tell people I'm a very, very unique person, to say the least. I like to have fun with it, but basically at the age of 7, I was diagnosed with Wyburn-Mason syndrome completely just by chance. I narrowly failed a vision exam, and my parents took me to an ophthalmologist, and the ophthalmologist basically looked behind my eye, and she said, "Oh, wow, I never thought I would see a case of this in my entire life." And that's obviously not something a parent ever wants to hear about their child. And so basically the hospital where I got diagnosed actually didn't say that I could get treated. They basically said, "Take her home and pray she doesn't die of a massive bleed." And my parents weren't willing to settle for that. So my mom set out on researching Wyburn-Mason syndrome and all of the different organizations that have had any experience with it, obviously hospitals all around the world, and it came down to there were only 2 that had ever treated anything even similar to it. And they basically told my parents, yeah, we can treat her in Stafford Medical Center in California. And basically they set out with cyberknife radiation, and that didn't work after the 3 years that it took to see if it actually worked. And then they decided that they wanted to do a series of 5 brain surgeries, actually. And it basically, sorry, need to take a sip of water. And it basically, after my first brain surgery, I had a massive stroke, and I couldn't use my entire left side. So I basically had to relearn how to use my entire left side at that point. And at this point, I was 11 years old, and I couldn't walk or do anything. And my entire thing was, as long as I can learn how to walk again for the horses, that's all I care about, you know?
So where did the love of horses come along then, Sydney? Were you always interested in horses? Did your parents, did any member of the family have an interest in horses?
My mom actually did. Yeah, my mom actually, as a kid, she always talked about having her own horse, and she basically rode. She worked at a stable, worked her own way, you know, she did show jumping, and as a kid, I tried every single sport and did soccer. I was always the one in the outfield picking dandelions, and it was never my thing. And then I basically came into it, and I started out as an eventer. So I was pretty crazy, but, I loved it. And I started out with my sights set on representing the USA in the Olympics for eventing. And obviously life sent me a lot of curveballs with my diagnosis and my first stroke and everything.
But you were always ambitious then, and so you've been riding how many years now?
I've been riding for 14 years now.
Okay, and you've always had a horse, and you've always trained. So I'm curious about the training that you have to do, and the physical therapy that you need, and the kind of gym work, cross training, that sort of thing. Sydney, what do you need to do to keep your body in the best physical shape so that you can ride? Because some people might thinking, oh, she's only walking, but as you said earlier, walking precisely in a test can be one of the hardest things we know for able-bodied riders. The walk is often the most challenging pace, isn't it?
It really is, yeah. And especially for my body, because my body doesn't function as an able-bodied rider, it takes a lot for me to do. And it's like riding a Grand Prix test for my body, because I have to do so much with a body that has so many constraints to it. And for me, I do a lot of Pilates. I work out at a gym 2 or 3 times a week, and I keep in peak physical form doing exercises at home 6 or 7 days a week. I gotta keep good for my horses, because obviously you can't ride more than an hour or so a day, and I do ride 6 days a week, so there's only so much you can do on a horse, though, obviously, till they go crazy from walking so much,
Yeah, that is the challenge. Do you have anybody else ride them at all aside from yourself to keep them fit?
I do. I have my trainer, Wes, ride my horses. He helps keep them balanced and keep them doing the walk, trot, canter work, and keeping them balanced and everything, which helps a lot with my body and my horse's ability to not go crazy with just me riding, which is a big thing in the para-dressage world. We always, it shows we can have our trainers warm up our horses so that they're ready to go into the ring for us.
Now, what do you most enjoy about being around horses and being able to ride? What do you really get the most out of with that relationship, Sydney?
Oh wow. Everything, really. I mean, everyone always kind of says my horse is like my therapist, but for me, it's literally my physical therapist and my therapist, because throughout all of my physical challenges, horses have always, always been there. And no matter what has happened, I have always been able to get up on a horse and not get discouraged by what my body couldn't do.
And do you get fatigued from riding a test in international competition, Sydney, that is not just the physical effort that you've put into it, but that mental game as well? How do you handle that?
See, a lot of meditation, and honestly, for me, it's not so much getting tired mentally. It's more kind of controlling the excitement that comes with the international competition, because I get so excited to be on that international stage, and in the ring, I have to really tone myself down so my horses don't feed into that excited energy and the happy energy. I have to harness my excitement into focus and drive. And for me, that's really my biggest challenge going into the international ring.
And it seems now you've been on the international scene, as I said, we first met before the 2010 game, so you've been on the international scene quite some time. What is it, would you say, would be your career highlights? Obviously, being an Olympian is very, very special, but if you could pick sort of 3 moments in the experiences that you've had so far, Sydney, what would they be?
3 moments for sure would definitely be the World Equestrian Games in 2014 in Normandy, and getting to ride down center line in France, because the horse that I rode there actually was a horse that I borrowed. So I only had about 2 months total training with that horse. So making it onto the team with him was a long shot, but, I made it there, and it was amazing. And being the youngest one in the games was such an honor. And then when I came home, earning the Against All Odds from the FEI, the Against All Odds award, was wow, jaw-dropping, such a career highlight. And then Rio in 2016, and riding down the center line the first day with Rosie. That's probably my 3rd career highlight so far. I want to add some more career highlights with Tokyo, fingers crossed.
There we are. Yeah, we might have a different conversation in a couple of years' time, Sydney, once you add that to your CV as well. And you've talked about your mental preparation, your physical preparation for international competition. And what about diet? Are you very conscious about nutrition?
I am. I'm very conscious about nutrition. I have always struggled with my weight, having been on steroids for so long with my medical condition and for swelling in my brain. And I have lost within the last year about 50 pounds. So I'm very conscious about what I eat, especially when I'm training. And I try to always eat clean and eat the right fuels, right mixtures, which I know is so difficult, but so worth it in the end for those results. Because, I want to be the best that I can possibly be for the horse that's underneath me, my partner in the ring during the dance,
Yeah, well, it is a dance, and we look forward to following you all the way to Tokyo. Hopefully that will, as you say, make another career highlight for you. And I know that it's early to talk about the horse that you'll be riding, but maybe we can get an update from you and post that on social media when you can tell us more about that.
Yeah, there are definitely some very exciting things in the works, for sure. It just takes a lot of time to find the right one, and international walk horses do not come cheap either. So it is a lot of time and a lot of hard work and sitting on a lot of horses, which I definitely do not mind because I love any time in the saddle.
Yeah, I mean, that's the one thing about shopping for a new horse. You do get to ride all kinds, and it's a journey in itself, and lots of good experiences, we hope, too, learning about the different types of horses.
Exactly. Yeah, it's so fun. I mean, I've always catch rode throughout my entire career in para-dressage when it was still allowed, at least at first, because I didn't have a horse. So it taught me a lot about riding different horses, especially on the fly. And I'm very adaptable in that sense. So I know we'll find the right one.
Yes, well, keep hunting for that right horse, and the very, very best of luck, Sydney. We'll stay in touch, and thanks for taking time to come on the program.
Thank you so much for having me.
Conversations from the world of women's sports. This is Wisp Sports Radio.
And you can find more information on our website at wisports.com. Just go to the Listen tab and look for The Horse Show. On there, you'll also find a link to Sydney's social media too, so you can follow her on her journey to Tokyo 2020. And whilst you're on the website, do check out some of the other coverage that we have here on Wisp Sports. We have everything from videos to podcasts, as well as articles and blogs from some of our ambassadors. And be sure to follow us on our social media channels too at Wisp Sports, because we'll soon be launching a brand new show called Wisp World, which is a live streaming video show, and that will be available on our YouTube channel and on our website at wispsports.com. If you would like to contact us directly, you can email us at info@wispsports.com. If you have any comments, questions, or suggestions for guests or sports that you would like to see us covering. And I'll be back next week with another episode of The Horse Show. Until then, thank you for listening wherever you are and for supporting women in sport everywhere.